Okay, so I think we'll just go ahead and get started for the sake of time. Good evening, everybody.
Buenas noches a todos.
Most of you, I'm sure I've met on the call, but if not, my name is Sonia. I'm with the Department of Planning and Development.
A la mayoría estoy segura que nos conocemos por teléfono, pero si no, yo soy Sonia del plan de desarrollo de los barrios urbanos.
Okay, so oops, we're gonna kick off the meeting tonight.
Vamos a comenzar la reunión esta noche.
With an update from the United Yards Development Team.
Con una actualización del equipo de desarrollo United Yards.
Followed by just a reminder of the Back of the Yards Library Listening Session.
Seguido con un recordatorio de la sesión de escucha de la biblioteca Back of the Yards.
And then we'll provide a brief update on the 49th Street Viaduct.
Y después vamos a dar una pequeña actualización sobre las noticias sobre el viaducto de la calle 49.
And then we'll also discuss one of our other community agenda items, the city-owned vacant lots.
Y después vamos a hablar algo de la comunidad sobre los lotes vacíos de la propiedad de la ciudad.
Okay, moving right along. So I think, Aaron, we have you and Jesse. Are we expecting the others, or can we go ahead and
we can start.
Okay, all right. So we'll kick it off with Aaron Weissner and Justine Building of the United Yards team.
Vamos a comenzar con Eric Weisner del equipo de United Yards.
Good evening, everyone.
Buenas noches a todos.
My name is Aaron Weisner.
You see Aaron Weisner?
I've only met some of you, I think, in person, and I've been on past meetings, but I think this is the first time I'm presenting, so nice to meet all of you.
Solo me he visto con algunos de ustedes en persona y ahora pues un gusto conocerlos a todos por esta plataforma.
I am one of the developers of United Yards.
Yo soy uno de los desarrolladores de United Yards.
Along with our partner Blackwood Group.
Junto con nuestro socio Blackwood Group.
And then we're really excited, and we'll talk more about this tonight. Our additional partner.
Estamos emocionados y vamos a hablar más de esto sobre nuestro socio que se está agregando.
Is our co-developer now on this, is Back of the Yards Works. Back of the, as you all know, Back of the Yards Coffee, but the team that Jesse has led is working with us with Jesse as a co-developer.
Ahí con Back of the Yards y también Jesse ahora también está junto con nosotros.
Jesse, I'll put you on the spot in a moment, but and feel free to jump in if there's any.
Jesse, también voy a hablar de ti en un momento y siéntete libre de entrar también y participar.
So we started these meetings, as you know, right after being selected.
Comenzamos estas reuniones justo después de ser seleccionados.
It has almost been a year.
Ha sido casi un año.
A lot has happened over the past year that
Mucho ha pasado en el último año.
That may not have gotten to your attention.
Que pudo no haber llegado a vuestra atención.
We think you'll see a lot of activity in and around our site between now and the end of the year.
Creo que podrán ver mucha atención ahora, entre ahora y el final del año.
We have a few slides here just to give you an update, but hopefully most of this conversation will be question and answers. So
creo que aquí tengo bastante información en las próximas diapositivas, pero creo que la mayor parte del diálogo será preguntas y respuestas.
Please, any questions you have, just hold them, and I promise you we'll get to all of them.
Y alguna pregunta que tengan, por favor, esperen y estoy seguro que llegaremos a todas.
Okay. So as I mentioned, our relationship with Back of the Yards Works, and I call it Back of the Yards Works.
Como les dije, nuestra reunión con Back of the Yards, y así como yo les llamo Back of the Yards Work.
Sorry, can I just interrupt really quick?
Of course not.
Yeah, Alejandro, I think because we're doing consecutive translation, we're not doing simultaneous so that everyone can kind of hear everything. If you can just let the presenter kind of finish the thought before, we'll make sure to break up our thoughts into smaller chunks so that you're able to interpret them. But if we can just let the presenter kind of finish the sentence before we start interpreting, I think that'll help a little bit with clarity. Thank you.
And Alejandro, I will try to make breaks pretty frequently so you don't have to memorize too much before you repeat.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we're working very closely with Back of the Yards Works, which is, and Jesse can talk a little bit more about exactly what Back of the Yards Works is now. It's a lot of it has been coming together along with United Yards.
Como les dije, estamos trabajando mucho con Back of the Yards y también una parte de lo que estamos haciendo también tiene que ver con United Yards.
So in order to move forward quickly with this project and to also make it a more, really frankly, give everybody the chance to sort of understand the pieces that will go into United Yards, we split it into 3 pieces.
Para entender el proyecto de lo que estamos haciendo, lo hemos dividido y esto ha sido dividido en 3 partes.
I'll go into those 3 pieces in a moment.
Y entraré en detalle sobre esas 3 partes en un momento.
In order to accommodate the Back of the Yards Works and to add the retail and community space that we were asked to include, we have now added 25,000 square feet, actually a little bit more than that, of retail space, and at least 10,000 of that will be for local small businesses.
Para poder acomodar Back of the Yards, hemos agregado un espacio comunitario donde hemos agregado 25,000 pies cuadrados y al menos 10,000 también.
We've raised just below $5 million in pre-development money, which is money to be used for construction, for acquiring the land, for paying the architects and the lawyers and all of the people who work on these projects. And we're hoping between now and the end of summer to have raised an additional $5 million to pay for all of the additional work we need for this project.
Y también hemos recaudado menos de $5 millones en dinero de predesarrollo para la construcción, para pagar la tierra, arquitectos, y esperamos también recaudar 5 millones más.
During the RFP process and in the time afterwards, we were asked to increase the low income units that we were providing. Not just all of our property is affordable, but we were asked to put in some units that were at a very low tier to make sure it was accessible to everyone. So we've added 14 units that have deep affordability, and I'll give more detail on that in a moment.
Durante este tiempo también hemos tratado de agregar más unidades que son de más asequibles, y sé que también en el proceso hemos agregado 14 unidades más y en un momento hablaremos más del tema.
And the best news is that we are very optimistic, beyond optimistic, that we will be starting construction on the first site of this project by the end of the year, sometime in the fall, including work on site that will include both a portion of the retail and the initial housing units.
Y estamos muy optimistas porque vamos a comenzar con la construcción como al próximo otoño en este año, y también vamos a hacer la porción siguiente también a los meses subsiguientes.
These are the 2 buildings that will make up the first piece, the first component of United Yards. We're referring to it as United Yards Phase 1A.
Estos son los 2 edificios que tienen que ver con la fase de United Yards, fase 1A.
This building on the left is the building at the corner of Justine and 47th. It's it's basically the same building that we presented to you in the process, in the RFP process last year.
Y el edificio de la izquierda Ese edificio que queda en la esquina de Justine y la 47 es el mismo edificio que hemos presentado en el proceso del RFP en el año pasado.
The second piece of this first project will be 3 flat buildings that you see on the right there. It'll be right in the midst of right next to the retail development that we'll talk about in a moment, but 3 flat buildings, 6 2-bedroom units that will be in there.
Y la segunda parte es el primer proyecto de 5 partes que en el desarrollo que vamos a hablar próximamente, que tienen unidades de 2 baños, 3 cuartos.
You can go to the next slide. Okay, so as I just summarized, the Justine Building is a 6-story building with 45 affordable units.
Y como lo acabo de resumir, la parte de Justine es un edificio de 6 pisos con 45 unidades asequibles.
It will also have the opportunity hub that we've previously discussed on the ground floor.
Y también, como les dije antes, hace un rato tendrá las mismas oportunidades.
The Marshfield Property will be 2 3-flat buildings with 6 2-bedroom units.
Y la siguiente propiedad será un edificio de las unidades de 2 baños y 6 cuartos.
So you go to the next slide. So I'm providing this information here partially just to give you a little detail on what those rents actually would be. So for the different unit types that are in this first phase, because again, the question has come up a number of times of what does that actually mean in terms of what it would cost on a monthly basis to rent those units.
Y les doy ahí una descripción de cómo se da la renta, y porque muchos se han preguntado qué significan estas rentas ahí para las diferentes unidades.
We could talk more about this tonight still if anybody has more questions, but I'm now going to put Jesse on the spot here. This is his baby as much as anyone's, and you'll see that it's called United Yards 1B. I promise you that is not the name that this will be known for. Jesse, what's it going to be known as?
Back of the Yards Works.
There you go. Go ahead, Jesse, if you don't mind.
Yes. I don't know if you want to translate that.
Bien, de eso podemos hablar en la siguiente sección de preguntas y respuestas. Sé que ahorita Jesse va también a entrar en la plataforma, y sé que esto no se va a llamar United Yards, sino se va a llamar Back of the Arts Works.
So yeah, so the building to the left is the old Goblatz Building. The entire first floor on the 47th Street side it's going to be all locally owned small businesses. On the corner of 47th and Marshfield would be anchored with Back of the Yards Coffee. And then the other small business that are going to be there is La Selva. There's going to be a small bakery, a tattoo shop, and a barber shop. And then on the building to the right, that's also on the corner of 47th and Marshfield, across from where Back of the Yards Coffee will be, and that's going to house Samos Cervecería.
En las partes de atrás de Goblatz, en el primer piso y la 47, será hecho para los pequeños negocios locales. También en la otra parte será el Backyard Coffee, una tienda se llama La Selva, una pequeña panadería, un lugar donde se hacen tatuajes, una peluquería, y también será incluido en otra parte aquí de esta sección una cervecería llamada Somos Monos.
And the Somos Monos, you want to go back real quick? Sorry. The Samos Monos building is the one on the right. And one of the cool things about this building, it's going to be a standalone. There's going to be, it's a brewery where the beer will be made in-house with a brew pub in the first floor. Second floor will be a event space, small event space. And then the third floor will have a beer garden. And within the beer garden, we'll have, we'll be growing hops and wheat that will be used, harvested and used in the processing of the beer.
Y en lo bueno, somos Monos la cervecería, está en el edificio en la derecha. Y lo bueno es que será un edificio por sí solo y la cerveza será hecha ahí mismo, en el primer piso. En el segundo piso será un espacio de eventos. En el tercer piso será un espacio de cervezas donde será el trigo y los ingredientes que serán cosechados y utilizados para procesar la cerveza.
And all of these businesses are 100% locally owned. You'll recognize some of the folks that are, from the community that are going to own these spaces. And the idea is to help the accrue wealth locally so that the small businesses can, we're working with them to make sure that they're successful, and that, that the money that comes into these businesses stays, this business hiring local as well and training local as well.
Y lo bueno es que esos negocios serán 100%, tendrán dueños locales, y lo bueno es que muchos de ellos serán reconocidos. Nosotros estamos ayudando para que pues todos puedan acumular riqueza localmente y podrán también ayudar a la comunidad y contratar a gente de alrededor.
And so aside from the small businesses behind, United Yards is also working to get a federally qualified health center on the other side of the first floor of Goblatz.
Y también United Yards también va a estar trabajando en tener un centro de salud aprobado por los federales.
Mm-hmm. And also the big sign, the old Goblatz sign, is going to be restored to basically identify this as the back of the yards, corner where, welcoming people to our community.
Y también el Big Old Blocks, el letrero también será para ser identificado por la gente y será también para dar la bienvenida a la gente a la comunidad.
And like I said earlier, just the Marshfield and 47th Brewery is going to be a standalone building. And right now, we're just working on getting, the special use permits expected in October.
También el edificio de Marshall será un edificio por sí mismo, que será por sí solo, y ahorita estamos trabajando para obtener los permisos pertinentes.
And we're hoping to start construction early 2023 for this phase of the build out.
Y esperamos comenzar la construcción a principios de 2023 para comenzar a hacer todo.
So Jesse, I can kind of, if it would help, I can jump onto this part because I know this is kind of more my language, my writing here.
Yep.
I should probably note, just in terms of what Jesse just said, although construction on this will start maybe a month or two after the residential construction starts. Back of the Yards Works will probably be the first door to open in this development because the renovation of Goblatz will be faster than building that tall, that large building at Justine.
Y como dije, en términos en lo que ya se ha dicho, la construcción comenzará también con la renovación de los Back of Yards Works y para tener ahí el proceso más rápido y más grande de los edificios.
Just in brief, one of our goals of doing this is to, as quickly as we can, transition ownership of the retail space for Back of the Yards Works to Jesse and his team. So the hope is that within 7 years after completion, that asset will stay in the community, owned locally by Jesse, and those businesses will stay in his ownership and the team's ownership for years to come.
Y una de las metas es transicionar la posesión del edificio para que Jesse y su equipo pues sean dueños de aquí a 7 años, para que eso pueda pues ser, que puedan tener dueños locales y se pueda quedar aquí.
Nice job, Alejandro. That was a tough one. All right. So we're in the process of raising, we're really raising over 7.5 million of private financing on top of our the support that we're receiving from the city, which is very much appreciated.
Y también estamos recaudando 7,5 millones de dólares en apoyo de la ciudad, lo cual de verdad se agradece.
I mentioned earlier the pre-development lending that we have been able to raise. A portion of that will go to cover the expenses associated with that design and construction work as well, so that the team can again move alongside us with the same resources that we have.
Y la parte del predesarrollo temprano será cubierta en los gastos en la construcción, en el equipo de construcción, para que pueda salir adelante con los mismos recursos que tenemos.
We're starting a process of sort of business planning and support as well. Some of the businesses like Back of the Arts Coffee have a lot of experience operating and running a storefront, facility or outlet for a long time, but some of these businesses are new. So we're beginning actually this week with a business planning curriculum that will be hopefully leading up to these businesses opening up with a strong base beneath them.
Y el proceso, estamos en el planeo de edificio y el apoyo, las instalaciones, estamos tratando de comenzarlo ya por mucho tiempo y algunos de los negocios con el nuevo desarrollo, lo cual conlleva a las aberturas de los negocios en todas las bases que están ahí.
And if I could add just real quick before we move to 1C as well, part of the that's happening is also within the development, we're still figuring out there's going to be a Marimba Institute space, and we're still figuring out where exactly it'll be, but it'll be either in the Goblatz Building or perhaps in the Rainbow Building. Those are things that we're still kind of figuring out internally. Also part of this development is, sorry, if you can go.
Y también la parte que estamos tratando de hacer el Marimba Institute en el edificio Goblatz, no sabemos si también va a ser en el edificio Rainbow, y internamente estamos tratando de ver cómo se va a hacer.
And also part of the development is we're also looking to acquire land to build out our roasting facility and our headquarters. And the roasting facility will also have a space that's going to work with the Opportunity Hub to do the training portion of the training portion for food and beverage production.
Y también parte del desarrollo es para tratar de ver si podemos adquirir tierra para desarrollar el equipo del edificio principal y tratar de trabajar con todos los demás para tener un sitio donde pueda haber oportunidades.
And we're working both with United Yards and the city and other funding sources to make that happen. So it's also going concurrently as well.
Y también estamos trabajando con United Yards y también de la ciudad y otras fuentes de financiación, y todo se está haciendo concurrentemente.
But all of this is all part of a big project to really change, our 47th and Ashland business sector to reflect, not only a welcoming space for people from the outside to come in, but also for people from the community to enjoy and for people from the community to own.
Y también esto es parte de un proyecto grande del centro de negocios en la 49, que sea un lugar que pueda dar la bienvenida a la gente de afuera para que pueda venir, y también para la gente local para que se pueda sentir en casa.
And that's it for me. If you want to go
Yes.
to 1C.
Todo por mí, si pueden ir a la parte 1C.
Okay, so 1C is right now it is what it was when we last spoke. It is going to be residential on the upper floor, and the Rainbow department store will still remain operating with a brand new facade. as we proposed, previously.
Y ahora vamos a hablar, no sé, está tal como la hablamos la vez pasada, va a ser la parte residencial y también va a tener su nueva fachada, tal como lo están viendo.
As Jesse mentioned, there's a lot of space above, and so there's a chance that some portion of the back of the yards works, for example, the Marimba Institute or other uses might also come across to this property as well if the space works.
Y también muchos de los espacios se están poniendo desde la misma porción, la porción de Back of Yards Works, para que pueda venir junto con lo que ya estaba siendo establecido.
One of the primary reasons why we separated these projects into three pieces was this building. It's going to happen, but going through a historic review and renovation process takes a lot of time. And if we had included this in the first project, we would have probably had to wait for all of this to happen at least another year. So our goal is to start construction on this building in the fall of 2023.
Y una de las razones principales por la cual hemos dividido este proyecto en tres partes es por el repaso histórico que hemos hecho en la fase de la renovación, y si esperamos un año más sería hasta comenzar más adelante. Entonces ahorita es lo que hemos estado acordando y tal está saliendo como hemos planeado.
So just really briefly, these are the dates roughly that we are hoping to achieve a groundbreaking on that first site that would include which is where the brewery and those three flats would go, as well as hopefully an acquisition of the Justine site to get ready for the work there.
Y aquí brevemente aquí están las fechas donde esperamos lograr las metas en el primer lado como en el lado de Justine también.
And then we would start in December on the Justine Building construction, start very early in 2023 on the renovation of the Goblatz Building, and then late next year on the Rainbow Building.
Entonces, como dije, en el Justine vamos a hacer en diciembre, después en febrero de 2023 vamos a hacer el Goblatz y en el 2023 haremos el Rainbow.
Okay, I know this is really where I want, to some extent, the conversation and questions to begin, but one thing we would really like to, go ahead, Alejandro, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we do want to start working on finding a date for a Meet the Developer meeting similar to the one we had last fall, to see you all in person and to actually, really reintroduce our group.
Y también hemos estado tratando de trabajar en encontrar una fecha para encontrarnos con los desarrolladores para verlos a todos en persona y reintroducir el grupo.
Okay, we are also hoping to really continue a robust community information process. I would say if there's any organization or group that that is interested in having information provided or have us present to them our plans, we are happy to do that, and we'll be rolling out more information over the coming months as we prepare to go through our final approvals.
Y para continuar con nuestra comunicación robusta en el proceso de información, cualquier información o cualquier organización o grupo interesada en la información provista, pueden venirnos y nosotros gustosos lo haremos para comenzar y podemos darle la información que deseen.
So I think at this moment in time, we can take any questions anyone has, that the team's on hand to take any questions. But before we do that, well, I'll give Alejandro a second here to translate. Sorry, Alejandro.
Bueno, pues ahorita creo que es el tiempo de escuchar las preguntas que tienen y pues poder responderlas.
We wanted to socialize some potential dates for this second Meet the Developer event, knowing that it's summertime and there's lots of events going on in the community. We wanted to be just hyper aware of, you know, just general timeframes and dates that you all think might work.
Sé que pues estamos trabajando en tener el evento donde podamos encontrarnos con los desarrolladores. Sabemos que es el tiempo de verano, hay muchos eventos en la comunidad y pues estamos al tanto de todo eso, pero queremos saber una línea de tiempo en general de los tiempos y lugares donde que puedan funcionar.
And if I can just jump in really quick too, if this wasn't already clear, because there will have that kind of Meet the Developer meeting coming up, I think for tonight, let's prioritize any sort of clarifying questions or questions around the scheduling of that meeting, and save any really particular questions about this project for that Meet the Developers meeting. You know, we'll have the time and space to discuss it more fully at that time.
Pues ahorita, como hemos visto, quisiera priorizar preguntas acerca de fijar fechas de la reunión para vernos con los desarrolladores, y cualquier pregunta que por el momento se puede tener, se puede responder en ese entonces.
Thank you, Nolan. So we were just kind of discussing briefly this past week, sort of just looking at the calendar. We were maybe late August, before Labor Day, before school starts up again, maybe the week of the 21st.
School starts this year early, Sonia.
When does it start, Linda?
Well, according to what somebody just said, it's the 22nd of August.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's much earlier this year, so you may want to wait until
after
September sometime.
September?
Yeah, till right after Labor Day.
Okay. All right, and that was on the table as well, so maybe that's the better option because people are still, you know, vacationing and there's all the summer events. And does anyone have thoughts on that, waiting till after Labor Day? After the year starts?
¿Qué piensan todos sobre de comenzar después de que el año escolar comience, después del día del trabajador, ya que pues la escuela comenzaría como la semana del 22 de agosto, sería mucho más temprano?
Yeah, we have a couple comments in the chat. Jesse says thumbs up. Angie said, yep, CPS begins August 22nd. So yeah, okay. All right, so we will look at dates unless anyone has any other ideas. We will look at dates after the school year starts.
Después de que comience el año escolar, vamos a ver las fechas que pueden funcionar.
Great. Okay. So we can open the floor to any sort of general questions, keeping in mind what Nolan said. We'll have plenty of time to an hour and a half, I think, at our at least an hour and a half at our Meet the Developer event. Linda.
I actually have a couple of clarifying questions.
Sure.
How was affordability determined?
Tengo
What
mi
do you mean
pregunta,
by
¿cómo
deep
se
affordability?
determina a la asequibilidad? ¿Qué quiere decir con asequibilidad profunda?
Linda, thank you for asking that. One of the things that the affordable housing community suffers from is bad terminology, and I'm happy to go into that. Thank you.
Gracias por preguntar eso, y una de las cosas que quizás está fallando es que esa palabra están dando pues, gracias a la comunidad de viviendas asequibles.
Sonia, do you mind going to that slide that I have that has the chart of the, yeah, thank you. So Linda, the affordable housing program, the primary program that we use for funding is the low income housing tax credit program.
Ahorita lo que estamos haciendo es el programa de low income housing credit.
That program requires that units be rented at no more than 60% of the area median income, which is set by the federal government. it's based on annual income data that the sort of average income for that area, and it's at 60% or below to be qualified.
So what is, I'm sorry, so what is the area median income? And when you talk about area, what are you referring to? Are you referring to community area?
It refers to the sort of greater Chicago area.
Oh, so it's not the community.
It's not just for this specific community. It's sort of an average of the Chicago area. So, which is why, one of the reasons why we were doing this, there's some neighborhoods where, for a 2-bedroom unit, 1,080 is low. That would be it's still a relatively expensive 2-bedroom unit for a lot of individuals, which is why we tried to have a range of them. Sorry, Alejandro, I know I said a lot there.
Yeah, I got lost. It was a two-way conversation.
I'll summarize this in a moment, briefly. Alejandro, just give me 1 minute. So, Linda, when I said like deep affordability, I'm referring to going well below 60% of the area median income, so that we're providing units at rents that are going to be affordable at different levels of affordability. So, for example, we'll have 6 units at 15% of the area median income, which means that those rents actually translate to tenant rent of $233 for a 1-bedroom and $272 for a 2-bedroom. But Alejandro, for the purposes of translation, I think if you want to say, when I referred to deep affordability, I was referring to units that were at 15 and 30% of that area median income.
Cuando hablo de la asequibilidad profunda, estaba hablando de las unidades que están entre 15 y 30% del ingreso medio.
Linda, I'm also happy to provide some additional information in more detail through Sonia and Nolan, if it would be helpful on this.
I think so.
But we're trying to cover our expenses while at the same time get as many low-income units as we can. So this was the sort of the best we could do with the sources we have. But our hope is that we will, this is the highest level that these rents would be set at. We will, realistically speaking, be renting to people who will, at each of those tiers probably be paying less.
And this might be worth going into more detail in that Meet the Developers meeting.
I know we had a table last time for kind of the financial structuring of it. I'm happy to sit there for the whole night with this, if you want to sit down and dig into it with me, to understand how those rents are set. It's fun, Linda.
No, well, I don't mean to be rude. No quiero ser muy brusca con ustedes. But I am sitting at another table in another community where somebody would, because there's a professor who does urban planning, and he actually looked at the community area and got the median income and matched that to affordability. And what we found was that, or what his sort of tentative comment was, that the people who currently live there would probably not be able to afford any new quote unquote affordable housing in the area. So that's my concern.
And this is why, Linda, it's a good point. This is why we're talking about this like deep. See, in a lot of ways, the terminology just isn't fair to this conversation, but this is why Aaron's talking about deep affordability, because this area median income is something that the federal government establishes. This isn't something that we can't, pull income for the community. We have to go by this federal standard, but that's why we're looking at even deeper affordability to make sure that we're trying to calibrate with what the community can afford.
Right. And by deeper affordability, we're talking about these lower percentages of AMI, right? So the 15%, the 30%, even up to 60, that's more in line with, you know, this chart, which I do think we will go into this at the Meet the Developer event, just so people can, you know, become familiar with it. But I'll just quote an example from the actual federal guidelines. A household size of 4 at 30% area median income earns $31,250. So those 3 units that you see up here on the table, though, that household would be eligible for that rent level at $526, if I'm understanding correctly, right, right, Nolan, Aaron? So we'll go through some hypotheticals around how all of that works, just to make sure folks understand and are aware. But it does seem sort of misleading, but it's set. That's why the percentages are set the way they are, because it's almost like a sliding scale to match the community affordability in real time, if that makes any sense.
A little bit. I still have 2 more questions.
Sure.
What will be the impact of this historic designation on the rest of the community? Alejandro, you want to ask that?
Hi, ma'am, can you please repeat the question?
Well, ¿cuál va a ser el impacto del nombramiento como distrito histórico sobre el resto de la comunidad?
We're not establishing a historic district here. That's not what's happening.
Well, no, but he did mention a building.
They're renovating a historic building. That's not the same thing as a historic district.
Okay, that's fine. Then that's
clarification. And that building is already on the historic registry, so we can't do anything to it without working with the Park Service to restore it. So, but that doesn't mean anything for the surrounding area.
Okay, my final question. The bringing in of another FQHC when you have the University of Illinois practically across the street from the site, and you know, maybe a few blocks down you have another FQHC with the Access Community Health Center. I guess the question is why, and if it's, you know, and the other thing would be, will this particular FQHC have mental health services, especially since the city of Chicago found it appropriate to close our mental health center in the back of the arts?
Alejandro, you want to take a crack at that? Or I think, why don't you just phrase the question of what, how does this federally qualified health center fit in with all of the other facilities that are in the community?
Bueno, wait. Because one of the other facilities is an FQHC also. Okay, so.
Yes.
¿Cómo este FQHC puede tener servicios de salud mental y cómo, ya que la ciudad encontró apropiado cerrar el centro de salud mental local que teníamos? That was part of the question, like the biggest part.
Right. Well, la otra parte viene siendo cuál va a ser el impacto de este centro que está, va a ser federal en cuanto a los otros 2 centros, el otro centro que también es financiado por los federales, que es el Access Health Center, que queda como unas cuadras, you know, al sur de nosotros.
So just to answer that question, we're working with a number, including Access Health and a few other providers. We are working with all of them, doing interviews to assess the need. Whatever we provide will not duplicate anything nearby. We're looking at geriatric care because of, you know, the supportive living facility upstairs. We are also aware from discussions with Access of the need for additional space. It may work in tandem with one of those other providers, Linda.
Nothing with regard to mental health services?
I'm gonna get to that in one moment. I just, Alejandro, do you want me to even try? Sorry.
Ok.
Sorry.
Estamos trabajando incluyendo para acceder a la salubridad y otros proveedores, incluyendo las necesidades de acceso, cuidado geriátrico para los ancianos, y también necesitamos trabajo adicional con otros proveedores también.
With respect to mental health, we're actually, frankly, Linda, we're working. We're hoping that we will actually overlap with several of the nearby facilities, SRO properties, where there's a dramatic need for service space. And we're hoping that either within the FQHC or potentially in some of the space that we're going to be developing nearby to have mental health services and casework. I will try to have more for you on this when we have the Meet the Developer meeting. I just don't, there's a few things we're still sort of finalizing on that, but it is there will be ultimately a part of our plan that addresses some of the issues you're raising there. I'm not sure it will be in the FQHC, but it'll be, there will be something within this development within these three projects. I don't mean to be to open to my answer, but only because I expect to have a lot more by the time we see you for the Meet the Developer event.
So I think we have time for just one more question, and then we need to move on to the rest of the agenda. So
and if I could just jump in, I think, maybe it might be worth, let's just spend the rest of the time. We have 10 more minutes. Let's spend the rest of the time and then an announcement for the library listening session next week. If folks are amenable to this, maybe we kind of hold on the last two agenda items and move them to the next month when we have a little more space.
The last two items are super brief though, too. So we could also just touch on those really quickly and then back to this if people have more questions. So whatever makes sense to people. Do we have more questions on United Yards? Angie's asking what is happening with Streetscape. Angie, I actually just bumped into VDOT at lunch the other day and mentioned your question. So we will be trying to bring Vanessa from CDOT or someone from CDOT into the meeting next month to provide an update. Does anyone else have any questions on United Yards at the moment? Going once, going twice. If not, please keep your questions in mind for the meeting in September. All right, so I think we'll move on, if that's all right with everyone. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you so much, everyone. Nice to see you all again.
Thank you.
All right, so I just wanted to remind everyone, we have our library listening session this Tuesday from 6 to 7:30 at Davis Square Park Gymnasium. Did everyone get the flyer? Go ahead, Alejandro.
Quería recordar a todos que tenemos la sesión informativa en la Biblioteca Park of Yards el martes 26 de julio de 2022 entre las 6 y 7:30 de la noche en Davis Square Park Gym en el 4430 South Marshfield Avenue.
I'll send out the flyer again. Please continue to spread the word, invite your neighbors. This is a very...
Mandaré el volante de nuevo, por favor. Inviten a los vecinos, a la gente de su comunidad y me estaré dando los volantes.
And you're welcome, Linda, of course. And if anyone missed the survey report, let me know. I can send that out again as well.
Linda, tú también eres bienvenida y también si alguien no recibió el reporte de la encuesta, lo puedo mandar también.
All right, so we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday.
Espero verlos a todos el martes.
Going back to the 49th Street Viaduct.
Volviendo al viaducto de la calle 49.
We heard from the Department of Transportation. And
Ya escuchamos del Departamento de Transporte.
they've been in communication with Canadian National Railroad
Están en comunicación con
question.
Canadian National Railroad
about your question regarding a potential rails to trail project at 49th Street.
en cuanto a la pregunta de Rails to Trail Projects en la calle 49.
And it sounds like there's some interest in potentially reactivating the rail line there.
Y parece que hay un interés en reactivar la línea de rieles ahí.
So at this time, we're not going to further explore the rails to the trail project.
Entonces ahorita no vamos a explorar por el momento el proyecto de las rieles.
But that doesn't mean that it's not something we can't explore in the future if
Pero eso no significa que es algo que no exploraríamos en el futuro.
if the railroad changes their mind about reactivating the line.
Si es que el ferrocarril, los del ferrocarril cambian de opinión acerca de reactivar la línea.
We've asked the Department of Streets and Sanitation to talk to the Canadian National Railroad about doing better maintenance work.
Hemos hablado con el Departamento de las Calles y Sanidad que hablen con los del ferrocarril canadiense para que trabajen mejor en el mantenimiento.
Such as cleaning up the litter, trimming down the brush, and trimming the grass and weeds. We know how unsightly that bridge is, and we've asked Streets and Sand to kind of put a little pressure on the railroad to clean it up and maintain it better.
Y le hemos dicho para que puedan pues mantener mejor los lugares, por ejemplo, limpiar la basura, limpiar el jardín, limpiar lo demás que esté creciendo ahí.
And I see your comment here, Angie. I think we should provoke the railroad from time to time. Yep. Any other owner would have been fine and potentially have their property taken away based on the condition. They abandoned it long ago. You're absolutely right, Angie. And we will continue to do that. I will actually make that one of my pet projects just to keep on them about maintaining it. I've seen it look like that for a better part of a decade myself, having worked in the neighborhood, and it's time we clean it up. It's a wreck, it's a mess. So if you see anybody out there, if anyone, notices folks working, cleaning, you see any changes, let me know. In some cases, you're out there in real time, you're gonna see it, see the changes faster than I would, but let me know as well if like, let's say they clean next week, but in a few weeks it's covered in trash again and there's weeds. I'll do my best to keep up with it, but please let me know and if it needs cleaned up again, whenever it needs cleaned, and we'll be in constant communication with them about it, because it's not acceptable. You're right. Okay, so moving along. I think last meeting I wasn't able to attend, but Nolan talked to you all about the vacant lots. The vacant lots around the neighborhood, the city-owned lots. And I think you all had some homework and we're supposed to identify troubled lots that you wanted us to address, or at least keep on our radar. Does anyone have addresses for us? If not, no worries. You can always send them later. Send them to me later when you're out and about in the neighborhood and you notice a vacant lot that is troubled. Please try to estimate the address. If there's, obviously you won't be able to see an address, but try to estimate based on the houses nearby, and or take a picture and send it my way, and we'll see what we can do. But it's tricky with the private, with city-owned. Well, we're talking about city-owned land. We will have Streets and Sand clean them. What I was getting at is with the privately owned land, it's harder to hold the owners accountable. Of course, we can have them ticketed, but that doesn't always guarantee that, you know, they maintain their land. But please send addresses along as you see them, and we'll be on it. Sorry, Alejandro, I know you've just let people know to send addresses to me for troubled vacant lots.
Mándenme direcciones, por favor, sobre si tienen algún problema con algunos de los lotes vacantes.
And I see one here from the Olguin family, 1436. Thank you. 1436 West 49th Place. We will look into that one and follow up on that one. Any other addresses? Of course, you're welcome.
And you can always email us.
Yep, anytime, email or call, and we'll dig into it. No pun intended. Anyway, let's see here. That's all we have for this meeting, everyone. Does anyone have? Marlon Gosa says, will and can you help with the purchase of a lot? Great question, Marlon. The city is revamping their not the large lots program, but the city. Nolan, what's the program called?
It's the adjacent neighbors.
Adjacent neighbors, that's it. Adjacent neighbors land. Say, I can't remember what the acronym stands
So
for.
we have, so in terms of city-owned land,
Yep.
we're revamping the sort of application process for acquiring city-owned
Yep.
kind of side lots. Well, that's what we call them in other cities. In Chicago, it's some land lab. In terms of privately owned land, I'm not sure that the city has resources to help private, like residents acquire private land. But you know, I get if there's something you have in mind, reach out to me or Sonia, and we can see what the options are.
Yep. So when you send the addresses to us, we look up right away the ownership, and then we're able to determine, you know, what path we can take in addressing it, or whether you can purchase it if it's city owned, or if it is city owned and run down, we, you know, have it maintained. But it gets a little trickier when it's privately owned, but there's still, you know, obviously we can hold the owners accountable with a ticket, but again, as you all know, those can only go so far and are not always the most effective. Anyway, I don't have anything else for you all. Do you have any questions for us before we part? No, Nolan, did you have anything else to add before we call it?
I would just say, first of all, thank you again, everyone who takes the time to come to these meetings. We really do appreciate it. Second, you know, look for invitations to, actually, second would be come to the library listening session.
Please come to the session.
At Davis Square Park. We're really looking to get folks there to express their thoughts and concerns and ideas and wishes for a new library. And then the third thing is, you know, look out for an invitation to the next sort of Meet the Developers meeting, where we can learn more about the United Yards project, the partnership between United Yards and Back of the Yards Works. And hopefully we can dig into a little more detail on these affordability questions, because they're really important.
Thank you, Nolan. Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate your time. As always, send us any questions or comments you have. Thanks, America. Take care, everybody. Have a nice night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.